Welcome to the Pencross Light Railway. In this episode I'll be scratch building a beer wagon from lollipop sticks and a few other odds and ends. The idea for this came from The Washing Line, which is a channel run by Josh W. So thank you very much for the idea, Josh. Let's see how we get on. Materials used for the build are leftover bits of a kit I had there. The design was changed so these components weren't needed, so it can be used to form the chassis. Lollipop sticks, axle boxes, wheels, and of course we'll need paint and glue. The chassis was made up from the remaining bits left over from the kit and used lollipop sticks to form the deck. Once the basic chassis was completed, it looked like this: lollipop stick top deck and the buffer beams at the end from leftover kit, and underneath I reinforced it with the lolly sticks to give it some strength. So it's quite a sturdy design. The axle boxes were glued onto the chassis frame and held in place with two dowels and with epoxy glue. I've also put a stiffening piece at the back to provide a bit more rigidity for the chassis. Mounting the wheels on the subframe to the chassis proved to be a bit of a challenge. First of all, I wasn't happy with the way things were sitting. None of the plywood is actually straight, and when I tried to put this bit on here, it wasn't working. It was all, so I mounted extra plinths here, here and here to raise the subframe up, which proved successful. Initially I used super glue, which proved to be non-stick in this occasion, so I went for a 2-pack epoxy, the advantage being I could get things as parallel as possible and also make sure the wheels ran, and it gave me a little bit of shuffling time in order to make things ran true and the wheels ran freely. A quick test run on the track, proving very successful. And then disaster struck. I pushed it round the track and it went round about a third of the way, so I thought, yeah, I wonder how far it will go. So I gave it a mighty shove, and then Sir Isaac Newton reminded me that it will continue a straight line, and it did. And it bounced off a plant pot, and it broke the chassis, and the wheels fell off and everything, so it's a right bloody mess. So in a fit of pique I shouted hic fuiludibus militorum, and counsel from H.M. the wife came back as non torsil subligarum. One is fornication and a game of soldiers, and the other one is don't get your knickers in a twist. I'll leave you to work out which is which. Now the rebuild. So the rebuild's not going to win any prizes for artistic or engineering value, but as you can see, I've added in 4 braces across to give it some more structure, and the wheels rotate freely, so it's going to work. And it's beer o'clock. Following the rebuild of the chassis, I've now made the cradles for the beer cans. Standard 3mm ply and little supports on them, and I've tested it with the appropriate equipment and it works a treat. This is a smaller can. I expect to use a bigger can, but it's going to add significant stability to the whole thing with the chassis. I will fit the binnies after I've painted it. First undercoat with grey. It's going to be a black chassis and a yellow deck. And here's the finished article. I've gone for the black and yellow buffer beams. The paint job isn't brilliant, but then again I'm not fussed with that because it was a bit of an experimental build anyway, and one that I found immensely enjoyable. Now to the test track, see what happens. I've done a couple of test runs already, and just with plain brass bearings it seems to ring really well. So I'll give it a little propel down the road back here, and it goes quite well. Next run we'll see how it copes with some points just up there. Cool. Next we'll see how it copes under load with a can of fermented apples. And the final test before we go for steam. This is a £10 block of lead. Let's see how this performs. Whoop. That goes. I found this to be a worthwhile and enjoyable project, but did learn a few things along the way. First of all, the wheelbase is a bit too wide, should be about an inch shorter, then it will go around the R1 radius curves easier. Also, when I smashed it into the plant pot, I didn't quite get the geometry right, and there's a slight wobble, but that seems to be correcting itself over time. And I use these little pads to stop the cans sliding around. Other than that, it behaved well and I'm very pleased. So thanks again to Josh and the washing line for providing the inspiration for this project. I will be building another, don't know what yet, I'm still thinking about that. Mounting the wheels to the chassis proved to be a bit of a challenge for a number of reasons. First of all, I wasn't happy with the whole thing. Who the put glue on my pencil? Ugh. On the way to the test track, disaster struck. Got a high-speed blowout on my flip-flop. Super glue required. So here we are on the test track. Let's see how it fares. Oh,